Yo, what is going on, everyone? My name is Nick, or the Notorious Fantasy, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about my week number 13 running back rankings for fantasy football in 2021. Inside today's video, we're going to be going in depth into my top 32 ranked running backs of the week, as well as explaining into why I have them ranked at each and every single spot inside of the top 32. But before we could get into things, I would like to ask, if you are new to the channel and you do end up enjoying today's video, to please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below, because not only is it free, I put out content every single day to help you guys win your 2021 Fantasy Football Championship. And while you're down there, whether you are new to the channel or not, please make sure to hit that like button down below to help boost this video up the algorithm so that more beautiful people like yourself can see today's video. I would also like to ask, if you guys are on Twitter and would like to follow me on there, to please do so at NotoriousFNTSY. So without further ado, let's get into my week number 13 running back rankings. We begin at the number 1 overall spot with Jonathan Taylor of the Indianapolis Colts going up against the Houston Texans this week in Houston. Now, last week he faced the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and technically had a down game. Now, he still scored 17.7 half PPR points. He still had 16 carries for 83 yards and a touchdown, but based upon the prior weeks where this guy's putting up crazy numbers. He put up 51 half PPR points in week number 11. The week prior to that, 21, and the week before that, 33. And that's because in all of those games, he easily eclipsed over 100 yards. And last week up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, that was not the case. But at the end of the day, his down game of 17.7 points is better than most running backs' great games. That was a down game for him. And this week, I believe he is going to, quote unquote, bounce back. Now, is it really even a bounce back when you score 17.7 half PPR points the week before? Maybe, maybe not, but up against the Houston Texans is going to be a much better game script for success in terms of Jonathan Taylor. And I say this because I think that they are going to run a train on the Houston Texans, meaning I think this is going to be an easy win for the Indianapolis Colts. I expect this to be a route where they're able to run the ball a lot, pound the rock a lot late on in the game, whereas last week up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, this was a very close game in which Carson Wentz was going to have to pass the ball a lot, whereas I think the game script this week is going to be very run heavy. So I love Jonathan Taylor as my number 1 running back up against the sorry-ass Houston Texans defense. Next up, we move to Joe Mixon, running back of the Cincinnati Bengals, going up against the LA Chargers this week. Now, this game has all the makeup of a very high-scoring back-and-forth affair. Now, I understand that the LA Chargers definitely didn't look all that good last week, but I think they could bounce back in this game and make this a very high-scoring game. Joe Mixon has been on fucking fire in terms of fantasy football. It just seems like this guy always finds his way on into the end zone. He scored 2 touchdowns last week going up against the Chargers defense this week that is soft up against the run. I love this matchup for Jonathan Taylor. At number 3, we have the running back on the other side of the ball, and that is Austin Eckler of the LA Chargers going up against the Cincinnati Bengals in Cincinnati. That defense absolutely suffocated the Pittsburgh Steelers offense last week, but I think that Austin Eckler will be able to easily get it done this week. We have seen that when Justin Herbert is struggling, when this offense is struggling, that Keenan Allen and Mike Williams could easily have bad games, but through those bad games, one player on the team is always there. He is always putting up solid production, and that is Austin Eckler. It seems like he is the safety valve of this offense, that he's the focal point of this LA Chargers offense, and again, I do believe this is going to be a high-scoring game, and I think that Austin Eckler is going to be seeing tons of dump-offs in this game, tons of rushes in this game, and I think he could easily be the number 1 overall running back on the week. At number 4, we have Mr. Four Tugs from last week, Leonard Fournette, running back of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, going up against the Atlanta Falcons this week in Atlanta. Now, last week going up against the Indianapolis Colts wasn't necessarily the game script like I just talked about with Jonathan Taylor, where I expected Leonard Fournette to just absolutely eviscerate the Indianapolis Colts defense. I thought that Tampa Bay Tom Brady was going to throw a bunch of touchdowns, and I thought that Uncle Lenny was just a fine start, not a guy that I was overly excited about, but definitely a guy that I wanted to play last week, and it was the exact opposite of that, obviously. Leonard Fournette scored 4 fucking touchdowns up against the Indianapolis Colts, and that is entirely possible this week up against the Atlanta Falcons. The Atlanta Falcons are going to be massively outmatched in this game. I wouldn't be surprised if the Tampa Bay Buccaneers absolutely raw dogged them in this game, and it wasn't even a close contest. I expect Leonard Fournette to have a very high carry total in this game, but we've seen this season an increased target total for Leonard Fournette, so I definitely like him in this matchup up against the sorry-ass Atlanta Falcons defense. At number 5, we have Alexander Madison, running back of the Minnesota Vikings, going up against the Detroit Lions in Detroit. Alexander Madison obviously filling in for Dalvin Cook, and the best part about Alexander Madison filling in for Dalvin Cook is that they basically just give Dalvin Cook's role to Alexander Madison. The last time that Alexander Madison was the starting running back of the team when we saw Dalvin Cook get hurt was a bunch of weeks ago up against, you guessed it, the Detroit Lions, and he had an absolute amazing showing in that matchup, just like I believe he will have this week up against the Detroit Lions defense. Now, I understand last week, me included, was very high on David Montgomery. I thought the matchup was just some soft serve. It was a cupcake matchup up against the Detroit Lions, and obviously, he didn't have all that great of a game, but I think that Alexander Madison is going to have some great success in this matchup up against the Detroit Lions, so I love Alexander Madison this week. At number 6, we have Elijah Mitchell of the San Francisco 49ers going up against the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. We saw what happened on Monday. The Washington football team just jammed the rock down the throat of that Seattle defense. They just continued to relentlessly run the football with Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissic. And that is going to be the case this game with the San Francisco 49ers and Elijah Mitchell. Elijah Mitchell has paid off immensely for you guys who went ahead and picked him up earlier on in the season. This matchup up against the Seattle Seahawks is beautiful because, like I said last week, we just saw the game script that is going to work, the game plan that is going to work. It is just run the ball, pound the rock up against Seattle, and they heavily utilize Elijah Mitchell in this offense, so I expect him to have a very solid showing here as my running back number 6. At number 7, we have a running back who's also a wide receiver, who now just so happens to be the reserve safety on the team, Cordaro Patterson of the Atlanta Falcons. Now, this week, he does have a tough matchup up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but in my opinion, the matchup doesn't fucking matter at all, because it's not like Cordaro Patterson gets all of his points from running the ball. He gets a lot of his points from catching the ball. He's going to go out wide. This dude is the best wide receiver on the team without Calvin Ridley, and to me, that is very obvious. He's also going to be seeing some rushes in this matchup, and I just honestly think that when Cordaro Patterson is healthy, you just have to play him. He seems like a lock to just see so many touches in this game. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, like I said, I believe they are going to lay the hammer to the Atlanta Falcons. And the Falcons are going to have to be throwing the ball a lot late in the game, which normally, if you're the average running back, then that's bad, right? Because you're not going to be running the ball as much because you're throwing the ball so much. But with Cordaro Patterson, he gets so many targets game in and game out, and I expect him to have a dominant performance up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Obviously, the matchup is far from ideal, but I think he is able to overcome that matchup and still have a solid top 10 week. And number 8, we have Naji Harris of the Pittsburgh Steelers going up against the Baltimore Ravens. Now, a lot of people are making this narrative that the Pittsburgh Steelers just absolutely eviscerate Lamar Jackson because Lamar Jackson has struggled up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. But this is a much different Pittsburgh Steelers team. Big Ben Roethlisberger looks like the motherfucker doesn't even know what day of the week it is because that's just how bad he looks out there. Going up against the Baltimore Ravens, this matchup is all right for Naji Harris. The one kind of good outlook of this, though, is that typically even when Big Ben is out there shitting his pants, having no idea what he's doing, playing like absolute ass, then Naji Harris is still able to play quite well. He's kind of immune to the bullshit of Big Ben, so I think that Naji Harris should still be able to have a solid week this week as my running back number 8. At number 9, we have Antonio Gibson of the Washington football team going up against the Las Vegas Raiders this week in Las Vegas. I really believe that this game has the potential to be a complete and utter shootout, a back and forth affair between the Washington football team and the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I understand last week that the Washington football team defense looked pretty solid up against the Seattle Seahawks, but in my opinion, that's not because the Washington football team has this elite defense that a lot of people talk them up to be at the beginning of the season, myself included. I'm not pointing any fingers or anything, or technically, I was pointing fingers, but it's like that Spider-Man meme where I'm pointing at myself because I was the idiot who also thought that the Washington football team were going to have a great defense this year. It was more of the fact that Russell Wilson's hand is clearly still fucked up, and he was making a lot of dumb decisions. I think up against the Las Vegas Raiders, who just got off of a shootout up against the Dallas Cowboys, a win on Thanksgiving, this really could be a high-scoring game. J.D. McKissic's availability is up in the air, which is shocking after you saw him got carted off in that game on Monday Night Football. I personally thought that maybe J.D. McKissic was done for the season, but J.D. McKissic's talking about how he could potentially play on Sunday up against the Las Vegas Raiders. Do I believe that that is 100% true? Maybe, maybe not, but either way, we saw season-high usage for Antonio Gibson last week, and I think that Riverboat Ron continues that this week up against the Las Vegas Raiders. So I finally like Antonio Gibson. Everything is finally clicking. Took all the way until week 12 of the 2021 NFL season, but hey, maybe that draft pick will have paid off because he's going to continue to hit at a very high rate late on into the season. At number 10, closing in the top 10, is James Robinson, running back of the Jacksonville Jaguars, going up against the LA Rams in LA. But before we go ahead and break down James Robinson, I would like to ask that if you have ended up enjoying thus far, to please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below, as well as hitting that like button. I would appreciate it a ton. So James Robinson going up against the LA Rams. Now, if you said that at the beginning of the season, I'd be like, no way, Jose, do you want to be starting James Robinson? That LA Rams defense is amazing. But looking more recently, this Rams defense has been getting exploited. But then again, do I really think that the Jacksonville Jaguars offense as a whole is going to be able to exploit the LA Rams? Probably not, right? But at the end of the day, James Robinson is the clear workhorse running back on the Jacksonville Jaguars, and I believe when he is healthy, you just got to start him. He is one of those upper echelon running backs in terms of workload in the National Football League, so even with a tougher matchup, I will still be firing up James Robinson with a lot of confidence, but the matchup does definitely knock him down in the rankings. If this was maybe a easier matchup, he could potentially sit inside the top 5. Now, we pivot to running backs number 11 through 20. At number 11, we have James Conner of the Arizona Cardinals going up against the Chicago Bears this week in Chicago. Last week, me and a lot of you guys, I would assume, were super high up on DeAndre Swift going up against the Chicago Bears because the Chicago Bears defense is simply just not what it was over the last couple of years. This defense just is not all that good this season, and I thought that DeAndre Swift was going to eat like he was having Thanksgiving dinner later on in the day, and that was not the case at all because the man got hurt, but Jamal Williams had a solid rushing day up against them, and I believe that James Conner is going to be able to have a big day up against the Chicago Bears. Kyler Murray appears to be back. It appears as though DeAndre Hopkins is going to be back as well, so this offense is going to be firing at all cylinders. Certainly, you can make the argument that, oh, Nick, now that Kyler's back, he's probably going to vulture a touchdown maybe in this game from James Conner. Maybe that is the case, right? That entirely could happen, but on so many teams, there are quarterbacks that can run the ball, and you still start the fucking running back. So James Conner here up against the Chicago Bears. Definitely like him to have a top 12 performance this week. At number 12, we have Daryl Henderson, running back of the LA Rams, going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I need to make a note right here, put a stamp on the video right now, that if Daryl Henderson does not play, you should not play him. Based upon what I have read, Daryl Henderson believes he can play. It seems like Sean McVay believes he will be good to go on Sunday as well. Is that a mortal lock of the century? Should you bet your fucking house on the fact that Daryl Henderson is going to play? Probably not. There is definitely a chance that Sony Michel could be the lead back on the team in this game if Daryl Henderson does not play. My assumption with ranking Daryl Henderson is obviously that he's good to go and that he is going to be seeing the normal Daryl Henderson workload up against a sorry-ass Jacksonville Jaguars defense. This would be a smash matchup. Now, obviously, if he does not end up playing, then you take him out of the rankings, and then you put Sony Michel kind of in this range, maybe not as a top 12 running back, but in the range of running backs like 18 to 15, and then you're pretty happy with his performance. Now, obviously, he's not prime Sony Michel from the New England Patriots, but he's still pretty solid when given the workload, especially up against the Jaguars defense. I do believe that Sony Michel would perform. At number 13, we have Ezekiel Elliott of the Dallas Cowboys going up against the New Orleans Saints tonight on Thursday Night Football. Now, the funniest thing about Ezekiel Elliott is after that Thanksgiving game, it comes out that maybe they're going to put Zeke on ice, right? Let him rest and then come back for the playoffs, right? Because the Cowboys are definitely going to make the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. They're going to go ahead and roll through here, and then they're going to get Zeke back. And then it comes out over the last couple of days that Zeke is just perfectly fucking fine. Everything's all fine and dandy, and Zeke is going to get the normal workload that he was receiving. He's going to be this workhorse running back up against the Saints. Now, in my opinion, do I believe that Ezekiel Elliott is going to be seeing the same workload that we are used to? In my opinion, no, but he is still the lead running back on one of the better offenses in the NFL. So you're going to start him, and you're going to have to rank him highly, but we will be discussing Tony Pollard because I really do believe that you should be starting both of these running backs this week. This is also a very interesting matchup because the New Orleans Saints defense has been a fucking roller coaster all season long. They have games where they look like one of the best defenses in the NFL, and then the next week they look like one of the worst defenses in the NFL, and then bada bing, bada boom, they look amazing. Last week, they look putrid, but maybe they're able to look a lot better with Taysom Hill as the starting quarterback. How does that affect the defense? Maybe because the defense actually feels like they need to be in the game, they'll actually play a lot better. Maybe that is the case. At number 14, we have David Montgomery of the Chicago Bears going up against the Arizona Cardinals. Now, I know a lot of you guys were immensely disappointed with the performance that David Montgomery put up last week up against the Detroit Lions. That was a much easier matchup than we see here up against the Arizona Cardinals, but at the end of the day, David Montgomery is still the lead back of the Chicago Bears, so I believe you should continue to roll him out there. Now, is the upside the same with Andy Dalton as it is with Justin Fields? Yes, because I don't think Andy Dalton is all that bad, but obviously the upside may be slightly better with Justin Fields because the team has looked better with Justin Fields under center, but I still think that David Montgomery could get it done this week up against the Arizona Cardinals. At number 15, we have Mr. Marky Mark Ingram, Mr. Big Trust Woo Woo of the New Orleans Saints going up against the Dallas Cowboys. Alvin Kamara, all week, it seems like, oh, Kamara's back, baby. Everyone is so pumped up. We're going to see Alvin Kamara return. And then today, earlier on in the morning, they basically shut the door on that assumption, and Mark Ingram is going to be the starting running back this week. Mark Ingram was out last week in that matchup up against the Buffalo Bills, but he's back this week, and that's amazing, because if we had to start Tony fucking Jones again, I would have ranked that guy as like running back 70, because he honestly is not very good at all. But Mr. Big Trust Woo Woo, Mr. Mark Ingram is pretty solid, and we've seen him perform thus far this season when Alvin Kamara was out at a relatively fine level. So I think ranking him at running back number 15 is certainly a modest ranking up against the Dallas defense. At number 16, we have Myles Gaskin of the Miami Dolphins going up against the New York Football Giants. But I also want to make a quick note about Mark Ingram. And the reason why I have him ranked at number 15 instead of as a top 12 running back is because I am a little bit worried about the fact that Taysom Hill just would rather run the ball himself than hand it off to Mark Ingram. We've seen it in the past with Taysom Hill being the starting quarterback of the team when Drew Brees was hurt, that he just doesn't love dumping the ball off to the running back like a guy like Drew Brees or like a guy like Jameis Winston would. And that's a little bit worrisome for Mark Ingram. Now, am I saying that Mark Ingram's going to shit the bed on prime time on Thursday Night Football? Of course not. But I'm just telling you guys to kind of temper your expectations in this scenario. Again, running back number 16 is Myles Gaskin of the Miami Dolphins going up against the New York Football Giants this week. Myles Gaskin has been on a tear over the last 2 games of the season, and I believe he is going to continue that this week up against the Giants. Now, it just came out a little bit ago that it seems like Daniel Jones may play, that Freddie Kitchens believes that Daniel Jones is going to play. Yesterday, the narrative completely shifted to the fact that Daniel Jones is out because he has a neck injury, and they're going to play, funny enough, neck injury, they're going to play the man with the huge neck, the long neck, Mr. Mike Glennon. And then today, things shift. So we are going to have to kind of follow this scenario all the way up until Sunday. That has to do a lot more with Saquon Barkley, who's my running back number 17, going up against the Miami Dolphins. So we'll kind of discuss them together since they're playing up against each other. So Myles Gaskin has been on an absolute tear. The Giants defense did look solid last week up against the Eagles, but up against the run, they weren't all that effective. And I think that Myles Gaskin, who has been on a tear, is the clear lead back for the Miami Dolphins, and I'm definitely going to be firing him up in this matchup. I know a lot of people are worried about Phillip Lindsay joining the team, and I think that Phillip Lindsay is an excellent piece to be behind Myles Gaskin in terms of the NFL, right? He's a pretty solid pass blocker. Despite the fact that he's pretty short, he's very good at defending Tua Tagovailoa, and that is awesome for the team, and he's going to get some carries, and he is a solid running back overall, but Myles Gaskin is still the lead back, and I think that he's able to potentially have a very big showing up against the Giants. For Saquon Barkley, I'm not going to go ahead and tell you that I think Saquon Barkley is washed or something, but the usage of Saquon Barkley is honestly fucking laughable. I don't understand why this guy isn't getting the ball more. He is the clear best fucking piece in this offense. You might have backed up the Brinks truck to get Kenny Golladay all this fucking money, but Saquon Barkley is the best player on your team. I understand the offensive line isn't amazing. Design some fucking pass plays to give this guy the ball, because it is egregious that this guy isn't seeing the ball more. He's not that same Saquon Barkley in terms of workload that we are used to, and it is fucking annoying. It really is. Now, I might come off as sounding like someone who's pissed off because they have Saquon Barkley on their team, right? And they're angry. I don't have a single share of Saquon Barkley, and just watching the games, it pisses me off. And I worry about that. Now, last season, the Miami Dolphins' run defense was complete and utter dog shit, and same thing could be said about earlier on in the season, but recently, they've looked a lot better up against the run, so I'm a little bit worried about Saquon in this matchup. I'm still definitely going to start him because of that name value. He's still Saquon Barkley. You know that all it takes is one rush for him to bust 70 yards and score a fucking touchdown, but I just don't understand the usage. At number 18, we have Jamal Williams with 2 A's of the Detroit Lions going up against the Minnesota Vikings. Now, obviously, DeAndre Swift is banged up. Now, there's still talks lingering that, oh, maybe DeAndre Swift could play. I don't think so. Seems like he's going to be out for at least a game or two, but he should be back relatively soon. This is no long-term injury, at least based upon what I have read. This matchup up against the Minnesota Vikings should be a fun one. I just discussed Alexander Madison earlier on in the video, how I believe he has top 5 potential. He might even finish as the number 1 overall running back on the week. Last week, after DeAndre Swift got hurt, we saw Dan Campbell just throw Jamal Williams out there and just give him the rock so many times. They're dumping him off the ball. They're handing him the ball. I think this is an excellent scenario up against the Vikings defense for Jamal Williams to flourish. Running back number 18. His upside is limited, though, by the fact that they are the Detroit Lions, and this could just be a certified fucking beatdown by the Minnesota Vikings. At number 19, we have another Williams, Javonte Williams of the Denver Broncos, going up against the Kansas City Chiefs in Kansas City. And at number 20, to close out the top 20, we got Melvin Gordon of the Denver Broncos also going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. So with Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon, basically every single week, who the victor is going to be out of the two of them is the one who moseys their way on into the end zone, or the one that catches like 2 or 3 more passes. They're basically an identical 50-50 fucking split every single week, and I talk about this every single time I talk about this backfield, how annoying it is that they're both here, because if you take Melvin Gordon, you dribble him around between your legs, you fucking throw him, you yell Kobe, you shoot him off to another team. And then boom, now Javonte Williams has the potential to be a top 12 running back, and Melvin Gordon has the potential to be a top 12 running back on the other team, because I don't think that Melvin Gordon is washed or anything, but Javonte Williams does clearly have better burst. Why is that? Because he's young. He just came out of college. He's young and spry. Melvin Gordon, not some old-ass running back, right? He's no Frank Gore, but he's been in the league for some years. So this matchup is very dependent on which one ends up being the victor out of the two of them on scoring that touchdown, getting those extra couple of passes. Now, I think it is entirely possible that the Denver Broncos could beat the Chiefs, but I think the way that they win this game is by running the ball aggressively. Now, I don't necessarily think that Teddy Bridgewater is bad, but I don't think he's going to put the fucking team on his back, Marshawn Lynch style. So I think that the way they win this game is by running the ball up against the Chiefs defense. So I like Javonte Williams as well as Melvin Gordon this week. Now we pivot to running backs 21 through 30. Again, if you have ended up enjoying thus far, please make sure that you do hit that like button as well as that subscribe button. It does help me out a ton. 21, we got Josh Jacobs of the Las Vegas Raiders going up against the Washington football team. Again, I do believe when we talked about the Washington football team running back Antonio Gibson, that this is going to potentially be a high-scoring game. And Josh Jacobs is one of the safest running backs in fantasy football, because every week you can rank him as like running back 17 or 18 through running back 21, 24, and you just sit him there, and that's basically what he's going to do every single week. The upside of Josh Jacobs is limited because he's not this crazy pass-catching running back, but the Las Vegas Raiders love to feed this guy the rock. He just doesn't have all that much upside. But you do see every single week that he is a consistent guy that puts up some points, and you're happy with him every single week. He's never going to win you your week, but he's never going to really screw you over, fuck you over, and have you lose your week. So that's just how I feel about Josh Jacobs up against the Washington football team defense. At number 22, we have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, running back of the Kansas City Chiefs, going up against the Denver Broncos, coming fresh off of that fine for going up against the Dallas Cowboys, hitting him with the peace sign, Tyreek Hill style, as he's running into the end zone. They are technically coming off of a bye, but the last game they played was up against the Dallas Cowboys, and he did get fined for that. The NFL is so fucking soft. I don't understand why you're getting fined for celebrating. I don't understand the taunting penalty at all. The NFL nowadays, they just have some stupid rules, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire was playing solid up against the Dallas Cowboys. The Denver defense has looked a lot better as of recent, which is shocking because they got rid of, the main focal point of the defense. They got rid of Von Miller, and somehow they've been looking very solid as of recently. Clyde Edwards-Helaire does see the main usage as the Kansas City running back. I just don't honestly love Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week. At number 23 and 24, we have the Philadelphia Eagles running backs Boston Scott and Miles Sanders, both going up against the New York Jumbo Jets in MetLife in this game. Boston Scott, and Miles Sanders. Now, Miles Sanders, I personally just don't believe that Nick Sirianni believes in this guy. He just never gives this. They're knocking on the fucking door, and then boom, Boston Scott's midget ass is in the game, and he runs his way into the end zone. I don't understand it. Why is Miles Sanders not getting the ball more? I don't get it at all, and I'm sick and tired of it, and that's why I told you guys in the start-sit video to sit Miles Sanders, because I'm sick of this bullshit. This man hasn't scored over 10 half PPR points since week number fucking 1. We're in week number 13. We are in week number 13. I'm just tired of it. I think Boston Scott's the better start. Now they're playing the Jets, so I will rank Miles Sanders here at 24, but my confidence is at 0. With Miles Sanders at number 25, we have Mr. TP, Tony Pollard of the Dallas Cowboys, going up against the New Orleans Saints in the NO. Tony Pollard looked pretty good last week up against the Raiders. Tony Pollard has looked pretty solid all season. The question is, what is his workload going to be? And I believe he sees an increased workload with Ezekiel Elliott banged up. And I do think that the Dallas Cowboys offense does look very good in this game, which does increase the chances that Tony Pollard moseys his way on into the end zone. So I'm definitely going to start Tony Pollard in this matchup at number 26. We got Davonte Freeman of the Baltimore Ravens going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers in Pittsburgh. Davonte Freeman is the lead back of the Baltimore Ravens, and that needs to be known as he's been the lead back for the last 4, 5, or 6 games. The biggest problem here is not necessarily the defense that they're playing in the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's the fact that he just hasn't done much since Latavius Murray returned. So, while I do feel confident that he's the number 1 running back on the team, while I would definitely, overwhelmingly, start him over Latavius Murray, my confidence level in him has started to dwindle. At number 27, we have Damian Harris, running back of the New England Patriots, going up against the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo. Earlier on in the season, my confidence in Damian Harris it went through the fucking roof. It was at the moon, because it was very clear that he was the lead back on the team, and while they were going to use other running backs behind him, there was no real worry. There was no real running back, number 2, that was behind him, that's sniffing up his ass, that could potentially score more points than him. That just was not the case. But now that does appear to be the case with Ramondre Stevenson. Now, gun to the head, pick one or the other. You can tell by my rankings, I prefer Damian Harris. He's my running back 27. Ramondre Stevenson, running back number 30. So the confusion there on the workload, I do think it goes to Damian Harris. But this matchup is far from ideal. The Buffalo Bills defense has been amazing all season. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game where both teams are running the ball a lot, though, so I think that Damian Harris could have a very solid performance. My worry, though, is that Ramondre Stevenson has looked so good. At number 28, we have Tevin Coleman of the Jets going up against the Philadelphia Eagles. Last week, fucking Walter is his last name. That man just vultured a touchdown from Ty Johnson or Tevin Coleman, depending on which Jets running back you decided to throw into your roster. It appears, though, that Tevin Coleman is the lead back. This Eagles matchup could be solid, but then again, they're the Jets, so you got to move them down here, and I don't feel like it's a lock that Coleman is the running back one. He was last week, though, so I'll believe that going forward until, obviously, Mr. Michael Cotta ends up returning. At number 29, we have Matt Breida, running back of the No One Circles the Wagons, like the Buffalo Bills up against the Patriots. The same argument can be made about Damian Harris, and Ramondre Stevenson can same here be made with Matt Breida. Matt Breida is the number 1 running back, but they still have Devin Singletary. Are they going to healthy scratch Zach Moss again? Maybe, maybe not. But I think that Devin Singletary's usage is still going to be there. I think Matt Breida is the more talented running back. But then again, I thought that Zach Moss was way more talented than Devin Singletary. Devin Singletary was still seeing a bunch of touches earlier on in the season, and now Zach Moss is a fucking healthy scratch. So what do I know? This Buffalo Bills running back crew has been so annoying all season long. They're going up against the Patriots. I think Breida is the guy seeing the most touches, the most carries, the most dump-offs, the most receptions, but I just don't love the matchup up against the Patriots. We kind of already talked about Ramondre Stevenson. I think he's the number 2 back on the team, but I do think he does have the potential to outscore Damian Harris again. This matchup is just not ideal. Now we move to the final 2 running backs on today's list. 31 is Rex Burkhead of the Houston Texans going up against the Indianapolis Colts. David Johnson has a 3.1 yards per carry on the season. That is so bad. That is laughable. It's sad, though, if I'm being honest with you, because I'm a huge fan of David Johnson. I remember 2015, 2016. It was my first couple years of high school, and I remember how good David Johnson was. I was a huge fan of the guy, and I still am. But he's just not, I don't want to make that joke that you're not that guy, pal, right? That joke's fucking ancient, like you fell off a dinosaur laughing at that joke. That was also a very old joke. That's an ancient joke as well. But Rex Burkhead does appear to be the lead back or the better back on the team, so I'm fine ranking him at 31 up against the Colts, but I don't want to start him. Same thing goes here with number 32, Devin Singletary, up against the New England Patriots. I think he's going to see some work over the other running backs that'll be ranked below him, so that's why he's up here at 32, but I don't feel very comfortable with playing him. So thank you guys all so much for watching today's video. If you did end up enjoying, please make sure that you do hit that subscribe button down below, and while you're down there, make sure you hit that like button as well. I love each and every single one of you guys. I hope you have a great rest of your guys' day, and as always, good boy.